Welcome, my friends, fellow info warriors, seekers of liberty and freedom worldwide. I'm Alex Jones, your host, and it is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2012, and we're going to be live here for the next 3 hours at least. Eric Muller, known as Mancow, syndicated radio host, is scheduled to join us coming up later in the second half of this hour. I've talked to him privately and off the record when he came to Austin a few weeks ago and tried to twist his arm into going on air and telling on air the stories he's told me about being in TV and radio newsrooms around the country 4 years ago and again this year and last year. So in the last two campaigns, and witnessing news executives in TV and radio ordering people not to announce Ron Paul as the winner of polls, straw polls, or when he's in first or second place, not to even mention him in a primary or caucus. And of course, you know, Mancow has worked at the national TV networks like Fox. He has worked in syndicated radio. He's on over 100 radio stations right now. A lot of them that I'm on, like Big 8, and driving out to visit. We're going to be speaking this Sunday. We're both #1 there in Orlando. But the point is that Mancow's going to come on because I was on his show this morning, and without me prompting him, he started going ahead and talking about it. I guess he couldn't shut up about it anymore. And so I'm going to see how far he'll go on air with us coming up here in about 23 minutes from now. I'm going to call him via his cell. He just got off his own radio show. In fact, we're going to try to twist his arm and get him to go back into his studio and maybe even do it via ISDN line, which he has, but he always wants to do it on a cell phone, I guess, so he can leave his office. What prompted me to really start getting into the Ron Paul being defrauded, and hence the American people being defrauded, is the fact that we saw election fraud in Iowa, which has now been confirmed. And we saw election fraud in Nevada, which has been confirmed. And South Carolina, that's been confirmed. And Maine, completely confirmed. They've admitted, okay, most of these counties that Ron Paul was leading in some places double digits, we didn't count them. And the precinct heads, the county heads are on record saying we tried to call in the results and we were told, oh, we've already got those. It's for Mitt Romney. I mean, this is on record in all the big Maine newspapers. This is the head of the Maine Republican Party saying this. And so now they're telling a whole bunch of counties, including very populous ones, this is weeks after the Maine primary, you still don't get to count them. Sit down and shut up. They go to Mitt Romney. And they're like, but we did count. It was Ron Paul. Or people showed up and they wouldn't let them vote, saying it's been canceled. They said it was a snowstorm. It was supposed to be 3 inches. It wasn't even a ½ inch. It wasn't even a sprinkling. There were still Girl Scout meetings that day. And this is all broken down at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Ron Paul is being cheated out of the Republican nomination. Now, I covered this back a few months ago, a day after the Iowa caucuses. We were able to have witness after witness who were there, some of them even precinct heads, where they would call in their number and then see something else on the news that night. Or they would say on the news, trucks have been lost with the ballots on board. So all these key counties with all these key precincts, they're not reporting. But there was a closed-door meeting between Mitt Romney and Santorum, and they decided that it would be, Santorum moved up from 3rd place to 2nd place and Ron Paul to 3rd. And, of course, who said that? Karl Rove on Fox News. Well, there's a problem. There are no trucks with ballots in Iowa. You have people go in, they vote publicly, they raise their hands, the numbers are read out, it's posted on the wall, the phone call is made. That's why Ron Paul was set to win Iowa. He was #1 in every major poll until a day before, and then they started saying in a few polls, well, he's 2nd place now. And then he comes in 3rd. The point is, winning all the straw polls, only his bumper stickers nationwide. His videos get the most views. You know, a video I shot last night had a couple thousand likes in just a few hours on it, and maybe 10 or so dislikes on it. I mean, just another example. All over the country I go, all I see is Ron Paul stickers. Never a Mitt Romney, never a Santorum. Even in Texas, I think I've seen one Rick Perry for governor back when he was running. This is what I am seeing everywhere. This is what I'm seeing across the board. And this is what you're seeing. But people say, oh, well, that's circumstantial that you only see Ron Paul stickers or only Ron Paul signs across the country everywhere I go. From Arkansas to California to New York to Louisiana to South Texas. And you're seeing the same thing across the country. You only see Ron Paul. And all the cheating him on the previous polls he's won. They just won't report he's won. Or he gets second place. They just only report first and third and fourth place. I listen to the so-called conservative talk radio news, like IRN that Genesis carries. Even when Ron Paul wins, they don't say he wins. They'll mention the second and third place. I mean, this is the type of stuff we're all witnessing. The fix is in. But in Maine, it's bona fide. At first, 4% are reporting. They're saying, well, it looks like Romney's going to be the winner. And then days after, when 80% reported, they said, well, it looks like Mitt Romney wins without even counting the counties that went for Ron Paul. And now Ron Paul's saying, we're challenging this, count the counties. And the state's saying, no, we don't think we'll do that. Nevada was the same story. He was first place in most of the polls when he came in third place. It's the same story over and over and over again. And they've pulled out all the stops, the entire system attacking him. Listeners mail me newspaper articles from New Mexico, other states where it shows Ron Paul in a Klan outfit. And people looking at Newt Gingrich saying, well, the Republicans don't like you. You're too extreme. They like him, implying that Republicans are Klan members and that, Ron Paul's the chief Klan leader. This is the type of all-out panic that we've seen from the system. So if you want to see the proof, and by the way, Paul's article just goes off mainstream reports. It's actually moderate. And, of course, extremism and defense of liberty is no vice. It's actually worse than Paul Watson put together. I worked with him this morning on some of the points I wanted. He's got my video I shot from the road last night, posted in the article. And that video doesn't even get into the fact that you see 100 to 1 Ron Paul stickers, 100 to 1 Ron Paul signs. And when I say 100 to 1, I've never seen a Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich, or Santorum, or Michelle Bachmann sign. I've never seen one. I have seen one Rick Perry. That's all I've ever seen. I've only seen one Rick Perry months ago before he dropped out in Austin, Texas, where you'd expect you'd see some. He is the governor, is the capital city. I've never seen any of it. I do see maybe 1/20th or so the Obama stickers I saw 4 years ago or 3 years ago. But I do see some Obama 2012 stickers. In fact, I see one probably every day. There are a lot of those compared to the others. I mean, they don't exist. And you're all seeing this. I'm seeing this. So savor this painful event and realize this is how much trouble we're in. Because only by admitting how monumental this gargantuan, colossal, mammoth, galactic-sized fraud, this mega fraud, this Googleplex fraud, it is so big, it is so in our face that it makes my head spin. And then I put out a video last night on the road saying, we've broken this down, the previous frauds on the nightly news and on my radio show, but I'm going to work with the crew from the road or when I get back on a compilation of the fraud. And I see the minority of people getting thousands of likes. Last time I checked, less than 10 or so dislikes. So we're talking about 95+%. I don't know, guys, with a calculator, do the math. If you have, let's just say 2,000 likes on a video, it's been up a few hours, and has 20,000 views or whatever. Last time I looked at it. So something has 20,000 views, a couple thousand likes, and 10 dislikes. What's that ratio? 10 out of 2,000. Or to be technical, it was like 10 out of 1,900 and something. So do the math. What is 10 dislikes of my video out of 1,900 likes? It's 90-something%. But again, people say, oh, well, that's just his fans. They're just energetic. That was the case 4 years ago. He could have been a front runner, but they demonized him, shut him out. It looked like he was going to win in New Hampshire. There was some fraud there, so he couldn't become a front runner. But this time, you're seeing a front and center, big-time, colossal level fraud. And again, There was fraud in South Carolina. Go look it up. It's admitted. Iowa, they've thrown out the election and said, well, now we're saying Santorum won, but we don't know what we'll do with these numbers. We don't hold again. And then there's no discussion. It's not a national news story. It's just in Iowa papers. Maine. I mean, Paul Watson has links here to mainstream news. Well, here's the New York Times. Ron Paul might have won Maine. You know, that's one of the links. And then links to local papers and groups saying, yeah, they didn't count all these counties. And it just so happens, just like in Iowa, just like in Nevada, just like in South Carolina, in Maine, it's all the places that he was dominating. It's all the places where he had, in some cases, double-digit leads. So it is being stolen. How would that have worked for the system when they told you can't have him, he can't win, he's a kook, he's dangerous, you're dangerous, people like Alex Jones are dangerous, Ron Paul's dangerous because he goes on his show, you can't have him. And then imagine if they would have let him win those. Boom. He'd be the presumptive nominee. Boom. He gets in the ring with Obama. Boom. It's over. All the major Gallup polls, he beats Obama better than any other Republican. Boom. He's president. Boom. Starts abolishing the Federal Reserve. Boom. Even if they assassinate him, now people understand what happened. He becomes a martyr. Not saying I would want that to happen, but that's what would happen if they did kill him. Now the globalists are in real trouble. And again, Ron Paul is only the fruit of the awakening. He's only the manifestation, a focal point, as we've always said. And whether he wins, loses, or draws, by being in the arena, he educates people and raises the awareness. So I'm going to continue breaking down Paul Watson's article that's so important. I mean, what does this mean for our country that we saw classic election fraud on record by Kennedy in Illinois, West Virginia, and other states, confirmed cases in Texas by LBJ to get into office in Congress, famous cases. I'm no fan of Ron Paul, but it came out in court and I looked at it. There was election fraud in 2000 against Al Gore. There was election fraud in 2004, but that didn't matter because there was election fraud by his fraternity mate, secret society mate, only 15 members a year, and it happened to be the one guy he was running against from a later class was John Kerry. So he didn't contest anything when that fraud in Ohio and other places came out. And it was later totally certified in court, and they had engineers go public for major companies and people getting killed and being hung. I mean, that's always the evidence of the crime. It's not like with Oklahoma City, I just get on air and have police officers on like Sergeant Browning, the head of the K-9 unit, who saw the bombs, the feds and everything in the building on Oklahoma City. And then the FBI agents come to his office in one case, and while he's walking down the hall and say, you and your wife are going to die if you keep looking into who else was involved in this bombing, boy. It's not like they were just threatening him. They did kill Terrence Yakey, Cop of the Year, who saved a bunch of people in the building. I mean, he was there a minute after it happened and saw the ATF in full bomb gear running around, telling medics to patch them up. They've been on the 9th floor, and he's like, 9th floor, the 9th floor is blown out, the elevators are down. Why are you guys here? Why are you all ready? Well, why is the head of the FBI anti-terrorism unit already here? They just said, how about we just kill you? Oh yeah, they'll commit Oklahoma City. They'll kill different people involved that have exposed election fraud. Got to look into that. But there's nothing going on. They'll lie about WMDs. They'll have drones attacking countries where they don't even have jurisdiction or a declaration of war and killing people. They'll say that it's okay to kill 200 people. They've said it's good collateral damage to kill one guy they say is a bad guy in Pakistan or Afghanistan. But they would never steal an election. Kind of like George Bush said 5 years ago. Hey, I promise. I remember on the stage in a press conference, we're not listening to you without, let me put on my fake Texas accent because I'm from Kennebunkport, Maine. Nothing wrong with folks from Maine, but, I like to act like I'm a tough Texan. Let me put on one of those little acts. I like cowboy movies when I was a kid. No, we don't listen to Americans Without Warrants. That's illegal. We only listen to Al-Qaeda. Then it came out a year later, they were listening to everything without warrants. In fact, I wrote a list here of just some of their frauds, but now we're supposed to believe them. They've been caught dealing drugs, our government, the big banks that control it, and laundering hundreds of billions of drug money a year. They've been caught lying to start wars, WMD. Says they've been caught doing medical experiments thousands of times. New ones just got declassified this week, shooting black people up when they come in from car wrecks at hospitals with plutonium, and then dissecting them while they were alive. And only one guy escaped and then later died of heart failure. Kind of like the kids around Fukushima just die of heart failure. That's what the plutonium and uranium finally does. There's a big article on Infowars.com with links. And you notice it's black people about half the time. But they killed white people too. But they just learned that blacks didn't have as much political power. People didn't tend to listen to them. They didn't have as much money on average in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And they still grab black people. About half the time, black folks are like the dish du jour. Oh, New York 5 years ago, New York Daily News, I report on it. You can pull it up. They would grab little black kids and test pesticides on them till they died. And in fact, there was one case where they told the mother, we're going to take your 2-year-old unless you sign these forms. We're the CPS and let us have the 8-year-old. And they took him and for 2 months tested pesticides on him and tied him down. He tried to escape till he died. In this latest article, the one black guy to escape, they pulled most of his teeth out, 15 teeth out to test what it was doing, and had cut into him and were taking bone biopsies in his leg, because that's where he'd broken it in the car wrecks. They knew that they could get in there. And he had to crawl out at night and escape from them, and did a police report and stuff, but then died a few years later of heart failure from the radiation. That's just one guy that escaped from the eugenicist clutches. But they wouldn't engage in election fraud. No, they just announced 12 years ago that when the veterans died, they're stealing their death benefits. That's Bloomberg AP. The open insider trading by government, openly against everybody, and then Congress just says it's legal when it's not. Yes, they've stolen elections in the past, but not now. Not now. Just don't believe your lying eyes. Believe that Mitt Romney loves you. Okay, my friends, it is hour number 2. I'm coming to you from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, overlooking the big old Mississippi River. And I'm looking at the big highway bridge that comes across right here. I shot a video out there talking about Ron Paul earlier. I got a whole bunch of videos that I'm going to be uploading to the YouTube channel and to prisonplanet.tv here today. And we'll be posting those at Infowars.com. After the break, I am going to start going to your phone calls. There's a bunch of other top stories at Infowars.com. In fact, let me go ahead and go over there to that site and tell you some of what I'll be interspersing with your phone calls. This is some really bad news, but the head of the TSA, Pistol, 2 years ago said, well, we're starting the naked body scanners, and there'll be opt-outs at first, but soon it will be mandatory. And they're upping the radiation power, you name it. And they're also groping people, I've noticed, after you go through the scanners. They implied that that was for the scanners. No, they want to put their hands on you. So it looks like air travel will soon be out of the question for everybody who doesn't want to be groped and violated, but then soon they'll just be on every highway. In fact, they're already there. I'm saying soon. It's soon they'll be everywhere. TSA questioning body scanner opt-outs. So this is just absolutely horrific, this federal power grab. They are hell-bent on absolutely wrecking our society. More and more people are refusing the naked body scanners, and so they are moving to do this, refusing to be irradiated, treated as suspicious behavior. So we've got to say even more, no to these criminals even more, because we've got to start saying no to the highway checkpoints, the basketball, football game checkpoints. This is just an overthrowing of our entire system of government. Also, globalists push internet control, freak treaty at the United Nations. And also, again, Ron Paul is being cheated out of Republican nomination, counterterrorism, and northern border drug strategy tied to perimeter security deal. Yeah, they said in the SPP documents from 5 years ago that they would use border security as the pretext to get rid of national sovereignty and actually integrate North America. Also, counterterrorism and northern border strategy deal will be used so they can control who brings in the narcotics and only shut down their competition. Also, regulators harm small businesses and protect corporations. Big article, the national poll there showing the American people get it. Also, big news, Google caught violating browser privacy settings to track users. Turns out that with Microsoft and Apple, with their browsers, that even if you block the Google cookies, they still track what you're doing and get around it, which is illegal. But they don't care because they're NSA, and that article by Paul Joseph Watson breaks that down as well. Really important article. Also, we've got a compilation of videos and documentation with Adam Kokesh on why the media ignore the veterans for Ron Paul rally yesterday. That was a big success. 2 powerful videos with Nigel Farage, the UK Independence Party, Greece being destroyed by EU fanatical ideology. That is just some of the info that we've got right now up at Infowars.com. And don't forget, we're also streaming video of myself here on the road, and that's all online right now at prisonplanet.tv. But your phone calls straight ahead after this quick break, and we'll get to James, Ken, and many others that are patiently holding right now, and Gerald Celente is coming up. I'm on my way to Orlando, driving to avoid my family being molested by criminal, out-of-control, federal, pot-bellied, pedophile pieces of absolute un-American trash. We'll be right back as we continue to expose the murdering, psychotic criminals that have hijacked our government. All right, let's do it. Let's do it live. I can do it. I don't need a teleprompter. It's shocking. I'm gonna write it live, like Bill O'Reilly says. And that was Sting taking us out tonight. See you back tomorrow. All right, we are back live, unscripted, and we're going to be taking your calls this hour. At the bottom of the hour, I knew this was coming. They said they'd do it 2 years ago. TSA questioning body scanner opt-outs and now threatening to stop people from flying, saying you might be a terrorist. They're pulling people aside. We've got press reports of this and getting in their face. Hey, I find it suspicious that you, a pot-bellied sack of garbage, want to stick your hands in my pants or grab my genitals, and that you have me walk through an area that thousands walk through in my socks, getting flesh-eating bacteria, you know, MRSA, all sorts of funguses, viruses, bacteria. I find it suspicious that you want to wear gloves like I'm dirty and bad, you punk, but you're not going to change gloves, violating all sorts of regulations. I find it suspicious that you're a big enough idiot to sit around radiation machines that on record top scientists have said, in the New York Times even, are giving you cancer. And then you go, they tell us it's safe. I don't like your conspiracy theories, Jones. Yeah, I hear your show. This gives off 1 billion to the radiation. Careful enough to scan through your clothes. The fool has said in his heart there is no radiation coming out of an X-ray machine. I mean, I don't know what to say to you people. And again, folks are like, you don't like it, just don't fly. Then Obama says, hey, don't worry, last year's State of the Union, not this year's. He said, we're going to have nationwide trains, 200 miles an hour, no more pat-downs. Of course, he already knew for 5 years before that they'd been groping at New York, Boston, Dallas, Chicago, and now in Dallas, they're just everywhere. People all over Dallas were like, I saw them, I saw them. We were driving past the DART stations and saw little TSA signs that they're helping. The feds are here. There's no jurisdiction, and these aren't even sworn officers. You know, there was a time when the FBI even took... Well, actually, I've had the FBI at my office a couple times over the years. They always have an Austin cop with them. I've had the ATF there, and they had an Austin cop with them. I've had the Secret Service there. Didn't have an Austin cop, I guess, because it's for the El Presidente. The Praetorian Guard doesn't need to come snooping around. These guys always show up, think they have federal badges and wearing a suit. You're supposed to start just going to the bathroom all over yourself. I'm always, you know, you work for a narcotics trafficking, murdering group. Just want to get that straight here. I consider you criminal. You may not be individually criminal, but I consider your entire organization criminal. You got that straight? And they're always start just smiling at you. Sometimes they kind of bow up, and I go, I don't care. The government runs giant child kidnapping rings. I'm done playing games with you. See, I recognize the bad guys. You understand that? I recognize who ships guns into Mexico and drugs back to the U.S. and gets caught in federal court and doesn't get in trouble. You only bust the little guys. Now, I know that about half of the feds, and probably 75% from the research I've done of police, are actually dealing with real crime and are compartmentalized. And you're called idiots and morons by the dark side. And that's on record from Serpico and everything else, that you're known as the morons, as the chumps. And when you try to stop those above you that are criminals, you know what they do. They blow your head off. Or they plant something on you. Or they say, you didn't fill these expense reports out. Kind of like Colonel Schaefer started exposing government involvement in 9/11 and the fact they were blocked from killing bin Laden when he was heading up the Maine hit teams. And they just said, he shouldn't have been using his his government Pentagon phone to call his wife when you're allowed to call your wife when you're at work on your Pentagon cell phone. They tried to remember that when he testified before Congress about Stratus Ivy and Able Danger, and then suddenly they were talking about criminal charges for a cell phone bill of $60-something, and yes, they actually talked about pens that he may have taken from the office. You heard me, plastic pens. The guy is such a goody two-shoes. Cell phone bills and plastic pens. Plastic Pentagon pens. There's pens missing from the office. I can buy like 50 pens and stick them in a cup, and they're gone in a week at my office. Well, I'm sorry, I'm covering up for criminals now. Oh my gosh, $60-something in cell phone bills and some pens. Meanwhile, again, the naivete is what is allowing this to happen, and I'm done playing games with it. I'm done living in this world of denial. So I'm going to be getting into that report and a lot more, but it's an action alert here. Yeah, I saw some of the commenters last night, and then I'm going to your calls when I shot a video at a truck stop gas station. We were gassing up the InfoWars RV that I have to use because I will not be grubbed, and I will not have my family grubbed because I can't handle it. There's already been an incident where they started groping my daughter once, and it didn't go well, and nothing ever happened of it because they didn't want, I guess they didn't want the image of somebody standing up to them, but I can't handle it. You may think in America them forcing deadly vaccines on you filled with cancer viruses and mercury and lead and everything else is good. You may think 2,000 plus percentage point increases in cancer is good. You may think all the neurological disorders and diabetes, type 1, 2, and 3 off the chart. You may think all this is good. I see through it. We have more articles today, more articles with links to new declassifications where plutonium was injected into people at U.S. hospitals. What would happen? You come in with a car wreck, concussion, broken leg. They take you in, don't tell your family you're there, put you in a coma, and start removing your teeth and cutting your bones out and autopsying you while you're alive. Only one guy, is the only reason this came out, because it was in police reports, was able to, I guess the drugs wore off, and was able, you can read the documents right now on Infowars.com, government admits it, climb out and crawl out of the hospital. You're like, how did hospitals do this? Most big hospitals have CIA agreements. 1968, they released a bioweapon in the subway, killed a bunch of people, and had their Army doctors in the hospitals in deals to not treat people when they came in with the unnamed bioweapon illness and treat them. But again, trust a government that's been caught shooting people up with syphilis, giving kids polio, giving us SV40, over 100 million Americans, government admits. Let's just trust them and take a vaccine and go in their naked body scanners and have potbellies stick their hands down our pants. I mean, this is what goes on. This is the la-la land. See, I'm not crazy. What I am is angry enough and primitive enough. I'm enough of a throwback blockhead. That's what my grandpa would call himself, my dad's dad, and call his sons. You know, he called all those old East Texas type folks, you know, throwbacks. Of course, throwbacks are the type of people that can get the job done. But the point is that I am primitive enough that all their propaganda, all their drugs, all their chemicals still can't cut off my lower brain function. And I can intellectually access info, but only because my primitive brain and my subconscious is powerful enough to override everything. I told the story of a guy in McBride's walked over that worked there and was like, you know, he didn't get too mean, but he looked at me and he said, you know, Alex, I hear your show. I don't like you lying about Bush saying he was for the assault weapons ban. And I was like, but he is. And then one of the owners, because I recognized him, went, no, Bob or Bill, whatever his name was, he is. And they're like, huh? Huh? And again, it's like Obama didn't do that. Bush didn't do that. It's all part of their military op of just deception. When the tanks were ramming Waco, machine gunning people, with the flare footage of the infantry behind it in a tank maneuver shooting, the government said that those are not men shooting. You could see them in clear black and white. And this is not an assault. And they were broadcasting. Come out with your hands up. It's not an assault. And so Obama says, I'm not for the NDAA.
Well, I trust.
And Bush isn't for gun control. He just pushes for it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, and I travel a lot. I talked to a lot of people. Yada yada yada. 8 out of 10 people don't even know what we just talked about, and then that's the most concerning thing. That combined with the Patriot Act, and then the Obamacare. This is not America anymore. And for my kids and my grandkids, you just have to just. Lord, let us pray a little bit harder here. But I'm not seeing people wake up like I wish they could. And you got to fight the fight. But wow.
Well, here's the deal. It varies which area you're in or who you tend to run into. Some areas you find 60, 70% are awake. Some places 5%. But every number and every globalist internal document that gets leaked or that's for more scholarly publication that they don't consider the public even privy to, even though it's public, they say the elite's in trouble, and their actuaries show that there's a huge awakening, and so they're battening down the hatches to try to suppress us. Remember, 3% started the war against the Redcoats when they kept pushing, or fought back. The Redcoats actually started the war. 5% won the war. So it's always 5% that decide things. And the globalists are less than 1/10 of 1%. And I guarantee you, we got about 25% that are really starting to get it. We got 10% that are really hardcore awake, 30, 40% that are somewhat awake. But you're right. I'd say on average about 65% of people, they know all about Sports Center, all about LeBron James, and all about, you know, Tebow or whatever. And that's fine. It's just I wish they knew about socialist health care, world government, and even the NRA coming out last week, and this is confirmed now. It's not just me saying it. Obama does plan to use fiat ATF edicts to ban semi-autos next year. So it's on. And listen, the cops will come and will SWAT team your house and will try to make an example out of you, to scare everybody to turn their guns in. They're going to do it. And I want people to understand, and I want the police to understand, if 1/100th of gun owners out of 200 million stand up, that's now 2 million people that are going to fight you. And that's going to be a civil war. All because a bunch of globalist traitor criminals gave you orders that were illegal. Don't follow them. I'm not some macho guy that wants to see a bunch of dead cops. How about we just don't go along with this if that's what's ordered? God bless you, and I appreciate your call. Even dumbbells are more awake than they were. But look, thumb-sucking dumbbells, for whatever reason, I'll bet you money their ancestors weren't involved either. You know, a lot of this is about bloodlines and families. I don't care what color you are, but everybody knows certain families, certain people stand up. Other people have always been followers that sit in the ditch. It's up to us to lead them, okay? We've got the truth. The enemy's got the lies. All we need is courage. We win, period. You just got to have the will. We'll win. Let's go ahead. Doesn't mean we'll win the first fight either. We just got to persevere. Let's go to Jet in Canada, then Mark, Derek, and John. Jet, thanks for holding. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. I'm a first-time caller, and I'm calling you about some of the things the previous guy had just talked about. I think Ron Paul is the only hope for America. And I hope that American people can get up and start to get their message out Make some YouTube videos. There's a spot on the internet called Blog TV. It's live TV. You can be on there for as long as you want for free and start talking about this NDAA and the dangers that come from that.
You're right, and people, again, don't just think as Alex Jones is covering something that it's now been told. The power is when you tell it, whether it's to 10 people or 100. Get an access show, do a website, do a local paper, do a local blurb, make copies of films, get active. And we've had success. Anything else, Chet?
You can be on there as long as you want, and I'm a former American, and I left America right when Obama was running for election because I knew what was coming. And I love America, but I will never step foot back in that country as long as he's there, and that's a shame. It's a shame.
Where have you moved to? Tell you what, stay there. I want to ask you where you moved to. I'm just interested because it's admitted the greatest exodus out of the United States that's ever happened is happening. And it's mainly the wealthy and ultra-rich. They are running so fast. They've done a great job ruining the country and selling us out and spoiling the nest. Just great job, scum. Great job ruining America. I want to hear more from the caller where they... You know, I think I answered my own question looking at the computer screen here. Jet says that they're calling from Canada. And so, I mean, why did you decide to leave when Obama looked like he was going to get elected? I mean, how did you know that he was the real bellwether to the full takeover of America?
Tell that by looking at his face. When he's up there presenting himself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You could tell he's a liar. He's a liar. That's all he's about. And another thing I want to make clear to all the listeners, I mean, I listen to you every day, and I have for years. When you leave America, even though Canada is somewhat free, you do not have the freedoms that you have in America with simple things like cell phones. You don't have a doctor and dentist on every corner. I mean, sometimes it takes 18 months just to get in for a hand problem into a doctor. You don't have the freedoms that you do in the States. So I'd like to make a challenge to every Alex Jones listener to take 5 minutes and pick up a phone and call your White House, call your local representative, call your senator, whoever, and tell them you want this NDAA out.
I hear you, and I appreciate your call. I think it is important to call these people, but I also think it's important just to call your neighbors, your friends, your family, or other people randomly and say, these crooks aren't listening to us. In a lot of ways, I think when we call Congress and they get 200 to 1, well, Dianne Feinstein says they got 2,000 to 1 phone calls against the banker bailout. But the average congressperson said about 100 to 1 calls, and polls showed 99% against. I think the crooks then just hire more SWAT teams, more drones, more police. I mean, they know you don't like them. They know you don't appreciate it, but they're up there stealing and robbing us blind and giving government contracts to their own wives and husbands' companies on record. And when they get caught, they say, oh, we're allowed to. We're members of Congress. That's called the Führer precept, that they're above the law. Okay, we are now into hour number 3. I am on the road from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have Gerald Celente, always informative, joining us. Let's go back to your phone calls right now. Mark in Utah, welcome, sir.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Good, sir.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, I just heard the segment with Mancow saying how the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is backing Mitt Romney. I can't find any proof of that. I'm a member of the church. I've been so since I'm 19. I'm 47 now. The church, everything I'm reading, the scriptures that they have is total anti-New World Order. I mean, they even go on to say that the Constitution was inspired by God, that the Founding Fathers were raised up to bring forth this document. It's the greatest document They even, in the Book of Mormon, even talk about the secret combinations and how they destroy whole civilizations in ancient America. And they talk about the importance of warning others of these secret combinations. And it just goes on and on, how the church is very anti-New World Order. They even tell you to fight against the Church of the Devil. I mean, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I've got to be honest. I'm not really, I couldn't even say an expert on Mormons, but I just know that as far as my listeners go, a disproportionate amount, what Mormons are less than 1% of the population, and I'd say maybe 5% or more of my audience are Mormons, and they all seem to be anti-New World Order and seem to know what's going on more than most people. That's what I'm saying. Then you got Mitt Romney, who's this big New World Order guy, and they're saying that the Mormon Church is supporting him, but I don't know any Mormon listeners of my show that are supporting him. They seem to all be supporting Ron Paul, but I don't know anybody else that's supporting Mitt Romney. I mean, is anybody seeing Mitt Romney bumper stickers or signs that aren't put up by the campaign? I mean, again, I'm calling all of this as a hoax.
Well, here in Utah, you do see Mitt Romney stickers because a lot of people believe that, he's going to be this great Mormon president. But what they don't realize, he's financed by all the major industries, the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical-industrial complex, the banking industry, and these people don't understand the concept of fascism, and shows like yours are helping people wake up, but there are a lot of people that are drinking the Florida. They're just not figuring this stuff out. But we are warning people, and people are waking up. But just like the rest of the world, there's a lot of people that have eyes, but they're not open. They have ears, but they're not hearing.
Well, I mean, it's probably also kind of like a lot of black folks voted for Obama. In fact, a lot of black movie stars have said, just another guy last week came out and said, hey, I voted for Obama because he's black. I don't care what he does. He's black. I'm voting for him again. And that's like, wow. So vote for him because he's Mormon, or vote for somebody because they're Catholic and you're Catholic, or vote somebody because they're Muslim and you're a Muslim. You got to vote for somebody for what they stand for and what they've done, not what color they are. I mean, I would vote for a black Ron Paul in a second. I would vote for Hispanic Ron Paul in a millisecond. I would vote for an Asian Ron Paul in a second. I would vote for a white Ron Paul in a second. It's about a history of doing what you say you're going to do. Even if I didn't agree with Ron Paul on every issue, which I do, 99.9%. The fact, if I agree with him on 90% of stuff, but he was always consistent, it's the consistency is almost even better than just the fact that he's right on his issues, because you know that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. That's what has value, is the sureness. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, and I totally agree with you. I love your show. You helped me wake up 6 years ago, and I've been telling people about your show ever since, and have woken up a ton of people. What woke me up was, if there's a war on terror, why are the borders wide open? And I'm so grateful to have come across your show, and I've spread it to so many people, and I just love it.
Well, thank you so much. Good to hear from you, Mark. All right, we got Salente coming up like 6-7 minutes after we come back, so I'm going to try to jam in John, Scott, Joseph, and Walter all together. But regardless, we'll get to all of you straight ahead. Stay with us. Let's go back to the calls here. Let's go to John in Georgia. John, thanks for holding. Welcome.
How you doing today?
Good.
Awesome. I have like two things I wanted to tell you about. One, I'm a delegate for Ron Paul for Precinct 6 of District 9 in Georgia. And the outcome that we had for support of Ron Paul at the delegate and mass precinct meeting was massive. There were all types of people from everywhere supporting Ron Paul. Even when Newt Gingrich came in and gave a speech, Herman Cain was there to introduce him. All the trendies that you talk about that were supporting Ron Paul for the media to cover, and like, oh, look at all the Newt Gingrich supporters, they all left directly before the mass precinct meeting, and directly before we got to choose all the delegates. So Ron Paul is winning Georgia as of right now, and it's amazing.
Well, that's right, because it's really about the delegate process. So the system's cheating Ron Paul in the votes, but he's just going ahead and taking the delegates, and they're talking about a brokered convention. The system is really freaked out by this.
Yeah, and there's something else I want to talk about. When I wrecked my truck about a month ago, it was in the middle of the night, and there were SWAT teams that came by in a tank. And I live in the middle of rural Georgia. And when I asked them, I was like, what are you guys doing? You know, that's a tank. And they were like, well, we're training exercises. And I was like, what are you training for, war? And they all laughed and kind of, you know, didn't pay any attention to me. But I was like, no, really, what are you training for, war? Because I've been listening to your show for like 3 years now. And I knew exactly what they were training for. They're preparing to take their guns.
No, what's going on is they're trying to make the police feel basically federalized and feel invincible, and it's about intimidation of the public. They've had police chiefs admit the black uniforms, the ski mask, are all for that. And they are trying to take on refuseniks, people that don't turn their farms and ranches over when the property tax, you know, gets tripled, people that, you know, are going to be forced off their land. And they're training with an iron fist to attack rural areas. The thing is, if it ever goes to civil war, people aren't going to wait for the armored vehicle, you know, the Marine fighting vehicle, the Warrior vehicle, or the Bradley to show up. People are going to go out and find people that work for the system. And so that needs to be understood. We're not just going to wait for you to come firebomb our house and, you know, send in your combat robot or whatever it is. It's not going to work that way. And so, yeah, they're trying to hype the cops up, you know, to feel invincible and, you know, festoon themselves in body armor suits and the rest of it. And nothing can stop initiative. And no amount of robots or any of it's going to stop anybody if this goes to civil war, other than their super bioweapons. And then that kills most people above ground. Out
of ground later, whoever survives, you remember, it's the globalists that did it. Anything else, sir?
Thank you very much for doing your radio show and all of your TV. And we're really, really supporting you here in Georgia. Just giving a shout out to you. Thank you very much.
Well, God bless you, my friend. Folks, should I go to another caller before we go to Salente? Okay, thank you. I was kind of cool now. Now I complained about the Cylon Raider thing, and now I kind of liked it. It's like awesome sounds. You know that sonar sound? It was that sound with like all sorts of other stuff. I don't know how computers make such cool noises, but it's like whatever language these things have got, it's like really weird. Let's go ahead and talk to... Actually, all these crazy screw-ups, they've kind of been entertaining for me. I hope it's been entertaining for the audience. We're beta testing stuff. It's like NASA here. Let's talk to Scott in Texas. Scott, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex. Yeah, real quick. It seems odd to me that Iran and the other nations that are on the hit list would just sit back and wait to be annihilated by the U.S. military. Seems to me like they would be going after these banking families with their intelligence agencies to try to prevent what they're doing behind closed doors.
Well, you know who founded the CIA. It's who founded the OSS with the Brits in 1947. It's on record. I mean, they've even made historical films like The Good Shepherd, put out by Robert De Niro, where the CIA is set up from top to mid-level by Skull and Bones people. And then that set up the other 15 agencies, and it's all from Yale and Harvard and Princeton, and they're all sent to get Rhodes scholarships and be taught by British intelligence, and they're funded by the Rothschilds and others. And so all these agencies are run by the dope smuggling, globalists. The British East India Company, Skull and Bones, got set up by that. And so at the top, and they operate with total secrecy, and they put in hitmen and people below them, and they just operate. So that's why, despite all that, we've had the last two Joint Chiefs of State.
Before that, the head of CENTCOM say no to an Iran attack and no to Cheney attacking our own ships. Ray McGovern, when he said, look for them to stage a Strait of Hormuz with fake patrol boats attacking our ships. And then it turned out right as he was saying that, 3 years later, Cy Hirsch writes about White House sources with the exact thing. And, of course, McGovern's like, oh, I'm just guessing, that's it. No, I mean, a real former top CIA analyst like he was to Reagan and Bush will always say, oh, it's just my hunch. He has sources, folks.
But it did come out that that was the whole plan. So the military did say, and the Navy SEALs did say, no, we're not going to go up and attack our own ship. They're like, oh, just shoot some rockets at it. It'll be all right. The hull is strong enough to take them. And they're like, well, what if we get blown away by the ship? And they're just like, do it. And they said no. So that's why they're going to drones and robots. They're just going to paint drones up like Iranian aircraft or Russian in the future and fly them into buildings again. And then where are we then?
Why doesn't the Iranian intelligence agency or the Pakistani, why don't they go after these banking families? Because they know that the U.S.
Oh, is that what you said? Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, your audio's higher now. Oh, so I'm corrected. You're saying, why doesn't the Iranian? And I thought you said ours.
The U.S. military to come blow them off the map, and they have very good intelligence services, but it seems like they're just totally ignoring the Rothschild banking family and all those families that somebody like Fritz Springmeier, brings to light.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Your audio was low. I missed what you said. That's a good question. Why don't the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians go after the global heads? The Russians, I'm not saying are perfect, but they do pay people to have kids, the opposite of eugenics. They have arrested most of the oligarchs and just became oligarchs themselves. And it turned out most of them did work for the Rothschilds. That's even been adjudicated in court in England a few weeks ago. The Rothschilds were suing folks over saying that. But it was proven in court that they really are puppet masters. And I think it's because they're so infiltrated, and they also know if you do try that, they would just go ahead and nuke Iran and wouldn't care one way or another. You see, the bankers have the space-based weapons. They have the nukes. They have it all. And so that's why they're so arrogant. But at a certain point, if Iran, Russia, and again, China, who's deeply in bed with the Illuminati,
the wild card. Heavily infiltrated, heavily corrupt, but not from my deep study. Under the Soviets, it was more connected to the New World Order than it is now. Things have really gotten out of control for the globalists. That's why they're trying to overthrow Russia right now. And I'm not saying if Russia could defeat the New World Order, they'd be nice either. This is the nature of corruption. But Russia, that's certainly going on, sir. Anything else?
Love the show.
Well, we love you, my friend. We love you, the great listeners out there that are taking action. We're going to go to break here in a moment, see we get Gerald Celente on with us, and then we will continue with your phone calls. And again, the crew's doing a wonderful job. It is quite a trick to be able to have him via Skype and me via Skype, because we got several backups here.
And so we're going to come back after break. Remember, the system's censoring everything we're doing, trying to block us. They're censoring Ron Paul. Redouble your efforts on Ron Paul and getting the word out about Infowars.com and this hardcore radio transmission. There's none other like it on Earth. And please make hay while the sun shines. Help spread the word today before the next phase comes in.